Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went off today while testifying at the invitation of Republican leaders on the House Weaponization Committee on everything from censorship to his distrust of vaccine and his comments that COVID may have been targeted to protect certain types of Jews.
I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me in my entire life. And why I'm under oath, in my entire life, I have never uttered a phrase that was either racist or anti-Semitic.
I guess how you define the words. He's again claiming he's somehow the victim of misinterpretation.
I am being censored here through this target, through smears, through misinterpretations of what I've said, through lies, through association, which is a tactic that we all thought we had been discredited and dispensed with after the Army McCarthy hearings in the 1950s. But those same weapons are now being deployed against me to silence me.
Including now by his own family members, by the way. RFK was the star witness at a hearing with Chairman Jim Jordan, citing a 2021 email that came to light in which a White House official asked Twitter to take down a tweet where Kennedy suggested, without evidence, that baseball great Hank Aaron may have died from the coronavirus vaccine. The tweet was not taken down. The medical examiner confirmed that Aaron's death was unrelated to the vaccine. But YouTube has taken down videos of RFK spreading what it called vaccine misinformation. Instagram in the past has banned him for similar reasons, etc. I think much of what he says is total nonsense or worse, but that still doesn't mean he should be deplatformed. And yet Democrats attempted to move the hearing behind closed doors precisely because they were concerned with giving him a platform, which seems ridiculous and counterproductive.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote on the motion to table.
Is it the custom of this committee to censor viewpoints that we disagree with from witnesses?
Mr. Chairman, I have
a point of order.
A motion on the table.
There's a motion and the vote's been
move
called.
Into executive session.
We're waiting for the clerks.
Is violative of Rule 11 clause.
Look, the hearing actually did raise important questions about free speech, misinformation, government overreach. But instead of focusing on saying, look, I've said controversial things, I think I shouldn't be deplatformed, which he touched on, Kennedy instead devoted much of his comments to denying allegations that he's anti-vax and anti-Semitic. Now, RFK can argue all he wants that he's not anti-Semitic, but what he can't argue is that he has said things, many things in the past that are offensive, not just to Jewish people, but just generally offensive or ignorant. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz called him out on that.
And if this were a slip of the tongue, Mr. Kennedy, or a one-off comment, we would all move on. But there's a deeply disturbing pattern. In 2015, you apologized to all those, quote, whom I offended by my use of the word Holocaust to describe the autism epidemic. When discussing efforts to encourage others to get vaccinated for COVID-19, you said Nazis did that in the camps in World War II. They tested vaccines on gypsies and Jews. That was a quote. Like before, you apologized for invoking the Holocaust, saying, quote, to the extent my remarks caused hurt, I am truly and deeply sorry. These are not real statements of contrition or remorse. They are passive-aggressive non-apologies that blame the listener for reacting to the lie you just spread.
Yeah, he's on the defensive after the New York Post reported on comments that Kennedy made, arguing that COVID may have been genetically engineered to not affect certain Jews and Chinese people.
COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted that or not. But there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact to that.
Is targeted. He said it. Period. But when confronted again by Wasserman Schultz, rather than just own up to his idiotic comments and apologize, he seems to be denying that he even said it, claiming he was just citing a study. Of course, he has a history of misstating studies and often facts. In essence, he was trying to say is that what he said was not what he meant. Okay, then just say that. The fact remains, RFK Jr. has repeatedly raised questions about vaccine safety and testing, even though all the credible scientific evidence doesn't support it. And while denying he's anti-vax, he still manages to insert dubious claims about the COVID vaccine and that widespread vaccination essentially doesn't work.
In fact, our country had one of the highest vaccination rates in the world and the worst health outcomes. We have 4.2% of the global population. We had 16% of the COVID deaths. Blacks in Haiti with a 1% vaccination rate were dying at a rate of 15 per million population. And same in Nigeria, had a 1.3 vaccination rate. They were dying at 1 in 14 per million population, 14 per million population. In our country, blacks were dying at 3,000 per million population, 200 times the death rates in other countries.
See, this is the kind of game he plays, right? Look, the vast majority of scientists attribute the lower death rate in the populations RFK cited as largely the result of strict travel rules, younger populations, less prone to known COVID complication risk factors like obesity, cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, etc. Not the vaccines. And yet, again, I do think that Kennedy should be allowed to say those things.
Censorship is antithetical to our party. It was appalling to my father, to my uncle, to FDR, to Harry Truman, to Thomas Jefferson, as the chairman referred to. It is the basis for democracy.
On that, I agree with him. We live in divisive times. People say things we don't agree with, that we strongly disagree with. And I believe he shouldn't be deplatformed. The way to combat it is by exposing it, talking about it. But let him say it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.